Imagine a supercar where two worlds collide. The world of Italian design, emotional, sharp, like an artist carving in metal, and the world of American power, simple, brutal, and reliable, like a hammer blow. In one car, this mix sounds almost impossible, but that is exactly how the Tomaso Pantera was born. A panther that went hunting in the early 1970s and still manages to scare, fascinate, and seduce car enthusiasts today. This story does not begin in Italy. It starts far away, in Argentina. A boy named Alejandro de Tomaso grows up in a country where racing is not just a sport but part of the national character. He becomes a racing driver, learns to feel the car not only with his hands but with his whole body, to sense where it is alive and where it is fighting for grip. At some point, his path leads him to Italy, to a land where cars are built like pieces of art, where every coupe is not just transportation, but an extension of its creator's personality. There, among noisy workshops and small factories, he starts his own company, De Tomaso. From the very beginning, his goal is simple and bold: to build fast, vivid, living cars, just as imperfect and passionate as their creator. The first steps are experiments. Vallelunga, a light, small sports car, shows that De Tomaso can build interesting machines. Then comes the Mangusta, a much more serious attempt. Mangusta looks wild, low, sharp, with a dramatic backbone frame and split rear engine lids that open like the wings of a predatory bird. But on real roads, the Mangusta proves difficult. The backbone chassis, edgy handling on the limit, and awkward service access make it a demanding car. It teaches Alejandro an important lesson. The next model must be more than just beautiful. It needs a strong foundation, stiff, predictable, and ready for a bigger market. That's when the idea of a new model is born, a model that has to be a step up in every way. It will be called Pantera, the Panther. The name is no accident. A panther moves quietly, but attacks fast and without mercy. That is exactly what this new car is meant to be: low, fast, dangerous, and irresistible. By the late 1960s, the world of supercars is changing. Wedge-shaped silhouettes appear on the streets, cars that look like machines from the near future. People don't just want a fast car anymore. They want a symbol, a statement, a personality. Most manufacturers take one of two paths. Italians build delicate exotics for the very rich. Americans build powerful but simpler muscle cars. Alejandro decides to mix these two worlds in one machine. For the Pantera's body, they bring in a man who understands both American tastes and Italian style, designer Tom Giarda from Ghia. He gets almost full creative freedom and creates a shape that will be recognizable for decades. The Pantera looks like a wedge cutting through the air. A low hood line, wide rear haunches, and sharp creases drawn as if with a ruler. The headlights hide inside the body, popping up only when the car needs to see in the dark. This gives the front a predatory character, as if a wild animal is narrowing its eyes before the leap. From the side, you see how far forward the cabin is pushed, and behind the seats you can almost feel the mass of the engine. One glance is enough to understand. This is not just a stylish coupe for casual cruising. This is a car built to attack. The structure is also very different from earlier models. Instead of a tricky backbone frame, the Pantera uses a steel monocoque. This makes the body stiffer, improves handling, and gives a serious base for big power. Suspension is fully independent front and rear, double wishbones, disc brakes all around. For the early 1970s, this is proper sports car engineering. But all of this would just be a pretty shell without the right heart. And this is where the second world, the American world, steps in. Behind the seats sits a Ford Cleveland V8, 5.8 liters of American iron. In the early versions, it makes around 330 horsepower. Torque is more than enough. When the driver pushes the throttle, the Pantera almost rises on its toes, eager to launch forward. 0 to 60 in about 5.5 seconds. Top speed over 250 kilometers per hour. For the early 1970s, these are true supercar numbers. And yet, this is not some fragile Italian racing engine that needs exotic oil and secret rituals. It is a tough, well-known American V8. For American buyers, this combination looks perfect. Exotic shape, low, aggressive stance, a name from Italy, de Tomaso. And at the same time, a Ford engine that any competent mechanic can understand, with parts that don't require months of waiting. At this moment, a major player enters the story. Ford. The giant sees an opportunity in this small Italian firm. Why develop a new supercar from scratch, hire designers and engineers, build a new production line, when there is already a nearly finished product? So a partnership is born. De Tomaso handles design, engineering, and assembly. Ford supplies engines and, most importantly, opens the door to the American market through the Lincoln Mercury dealer network. On paper, it looks like a perfect marriage. Italian passion plus American scale. In 1970, the Pantera is shown in Modena and then at the New York Auto Show. Journalists see a low, aggressive coupe with a roaring V8 and Ford backing it. The buzz is huge. In 1971, the first cars are shipped to American dealers. The Pantera is sold as an exotic you can buy at a familiar showroom, with a warranty, and service at the same places that work on regular Fords. But real life rarely matches the glossy brochure. The first Pantera owners discover things the marketing never mentioned. Build quality is often far from perfect. Panel gaps can be uneven. Paint can be inconsistent. Some interiors feel rushed, as if the factory was racing against the clock. There are technical issues as well. The engine is powerful and hot, and it throws a lot of heat into the small cabin. The cooling system sometimes struggles, especially in city traffic or in hot weather. The electrics can be moody, and certain components demand attention much earlier than buyers expect. For hardcore car enthusiasts, this is all part of the game. For a typical Ford customer, it is a serious disappointment. They are used to cars that just work. The Pantera, however, is still more of an Italian supercar than a mass-market product. Yet those who get a good example fall in love instantly. They say this car is a real beast. You drop down into a low seat, look over the long, flat hood, glance back and see a small rear window, and behind it, the hidden V8. You twist the key, and the car comes alive. Not just starts, but truly comes alive like a panther waking up from sleep. On the move, the Pantera gives you raw, honest sensations. Torque is always there. Sound, vibration, steering feedback. Everything tells you are not driving a sterile digital sports car from the future. You are wrestling with a living machine from the 1970s, and every input matters. To improve the car's image, De Tomaso and Ford start evolving the model. They release the Pantera L, Lusso. The idea is to make it more grown-up and comfortable for the American market. The suspension becomes slightly softer, the interior more refined, the engine tuned to meet tighter emissions rules. Big black bumpers appear to satisfy U.S. safety regulations. Next comes the Pantera GTS. This version moves closer to a race car for the road. Flared arches, wider tires, sporty exterior details, and, especially in European spec, more aggressive performance. These cars look like they drove off a racetrack straight onto public roads. And in fact, the Pantera does go racing. On its base, teams build competition cars for Group 3 and Group 4. Bodies are lightened, suspensions reinforced, engines tuned for even higher output. Large spoilers and air intakes appear. Aerodynamics are reshaped for high-speed stability. On the track, the Pantera proves it is more than just a pretty face. It may not dominate like Ferrari or Porsche, but its sound and presence leave a strong impression. Meanwhile, the outside world is changing. Emissions and safety regulations in the U.S. grow stricter every year. Adapting a small series Italian exotic to each new rule becomes harder and more expensive. In 1975, Ford decides to end official Pantera imports to the United States. The partnership winds down. For De Tomaso, it is a heavy blow, but not the end of the story. The company continues building the Pantera in small numbers, mainly for Europe and dedicated clients. During the 1980s, the car sees several updates, with revised bodywork, new styling details, and reworked engines. These versions reflect the fashion of their era. Wider body kits, more aggressive lines, cars that almost shout about their power. At the same time, tuning shops and private builders around the world start creating their own interpretations. Some build full-track monsters with roll cages and wild power figures. Others create refined resto mods, with modern brakes and electrics, but the classic 1970s look. Each of these Panteras is unique. Each one tells its own story. In total, just over 7,000 Panteras are built over the entire production run. For the mass market, that is a drop in the ocean. For the world of classic cars, it is a priceless, small pack of predators. Well-kept examples command serious money at auctions. The rarest early cars, special editions, and racing chassis with documented history are especially sought after. But beyond prices and numbers, one thing remains most important: the feeling. The Pantera is a car that makes you feel alive. Yes, it is loud. Yes, it is hot. Yes, it can be demanding and sometimes inconvenient. But that is exactly why people love it. When you sit behind the wheel, see the hood trembling, smell fuel and oil, hear the V8 breathing heavily behind your back, you realize this beast was never meant to sit quietly in a museum. It wants to move. It wants to roar. It wants to burn rubber in time. Today, the De Tomaso Pantera is one of the brightest examples of how a small idea can grow into a loud legend. Italian on the outside, American at heart, a rebel in its soul. If you enjoy cars like this, rare, challenging, full of character and history, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and tell in the comments which legendary car you want to see in the next video. This was the story of the Pantera, a 1970s predator that still hasn't lost its taste for the hunt.